Hola amigos, ¿cómo están? I hope you guys are holding up well and, staying safe, staying healthy. Of course, it's me once again, Luis, your, Distill Arts captain here. So, hola. I hope everyone is enjoying themselves as much as possible, being productive, getting a lot of stuff done. Today's particular lesson is one that is going to kind of take us on, I think, our culminating journey here through the theme of the human journey. And, it's something that actually I felt was a good way for us to close the current theme of the human journey and to start essentially wrapping up the writing and start collecting the submissions for the next issue of our Conchas y Café Zine. So if you haven't done so yet, please make sure that you are turning in work so that I can provide feedback to you. If you are also relatively new to the workshop series, there's all the other previous videos that we've done up to this point on the same Google Classroom under the classwork or assignments section of the Google Classroom. So make sure that you check them all out. All the handouts are there, the videos are there. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out through Google Classroom. Today's quote is actually not so much a quote, more of a paraphrase. And it's actually something that's going to be kind of written within the actual handout that I'll be giving you today. But to recap, right, we've been talking about the human journey since, I believe, the end of February. And that has been our theme that we've sort of been exploring now for the past several weeks and thinking about different ways in which humans have gone on our little journey through history. And history being what it is, is something that does show us through continuity and change that there are things that continue. There are cycles that are repeated throughout our lifetime and the lifetime of future generations and the lifetime of past generations. And so that awareness of continuity and change is something that I think is very important as we start to culminate our current series. Now, as far as the quote itself, it comes from Joseph Campbell, who is most famous for his work done in pedagogy as well as the hero's journey, which is something that he basically coined. But the actual concept of the hero's journey is something that has existed for essentially eons, since the beginning of storytelling. Y como para traducir un poco aquí, hoy que empezamos la última sesión, la última lección de Conchas y Café, para ya empezar a culminar la clase, esta serie en particular, vamos a hablar un poquito sobre la aventura del héroe, que es algo que hemos platicado en sesiones pasadas de Conchas y Café. No es nada nuevo, pero ojalá aprendamos algo diferente esta vez. The hero's journey, and what Joseph Campbell said, is pretty much this in a nutshell. Every person is the hero of their own journey, meaning that all of us are essentially our own protagonist, our main character in the story that is our life. Y no es por ser egoísta, ¿verdad? No es que quieramos decir que todos somos un tipo héroe como los que están ahorita combatiendo la enfermedad COVID-19 y los que nos están haciendo las entregas al diario de comida, de otras necesidades, ¿verdad? No es que uno diga que somos mejor que otro, pero cada quien es el héroe de su propia aventura, ¿verdad? Todos somos los que navegan los caminos que nos da la vida. And, being on that particular path on our journey, that's something that I think is very it's at least reassuring to know that we're not the only ones that are on our own individual path as heroes of our own particular story. And so to start today, I created a little diagram that I'll be sharing with you, obviously, in the handouts. The diagram itself is your basic overview of what the hero's journey is. We start off at the beginning of our journey. Cada quien empieza en el inicio de su aventura. Y típicamente en el inicio viene alguien o algo, dependiendo del cuento, que viene siendo como un tipo heraldo, ¿verdad? The herald is what typically will be that thing that forces us to take this journey, right? Because none of us ever really go on any kind of life path without some reason, whether that be just simply growing up or it being us being challenged by something that is unexpected, that pulls us out of the status quo. Porque el último, el status quo es lo que nos mantiene fijos en nuestra vida, es lo que uno puede decir es ser contento, pero también ser complaciente. Right? Complacency is essentially what status quo means. And that's not to say that it's a bad thing, but, for the purpose of telling a story, there's always something that happens or someone or some physical event that is the compulsion for the hero to start their journey. Así que cuando llega el heraldo, ese evento, persona o tipo que nos empuja, después es cuando uno se llega a conocer un mentor o un maestro. And that second part, that follow-up part, it's the meeting of a mentor is that particular moment in which the main character or you as a person might find someone that could potentially guide you through your life, through that particular moment of your journey. And when you think about, the way that everyone's life happens, right? We're part of a community. And so if you think of even your mentor as part of this bigger community, it's being introduced to community. It's being introduced to different people that can potentially guide you in a different way through different times and different things or challenges that you might have in your life. The third event or third major thing that happens within the hero's journey is the crossing of a threshold. That's basically when the hero goes into the unknown. Lo desconocido es lo que al último nos causa temor, ¿verdad? Cuando no conocemos algo, es suficiente razón para que nosotros nos pongamos pretextos para no hacer las cosas. I think that that's really important for us to understand, right? That in everyone's journey, we all have these pretexts that we use. We all come up with excuses ultimately to not do something that might be actually good for us. And so that crossing of the threshold is kind of like that coming to terms with, what, we have to actually make things different. We have to change. We cannot be the same person that we were. Eso nunca significa que sea un evento muy fácil, ¿verdad? Muchas veces negamos que tenemos que cambiar, pero ya al aceptar que ese cambio es necesario, es cuando empiezan pues las pruebas y los fracasos, desafortunadamente. The trials and failures that we all experience in life, they're things that we all ultimately need in order to grow and to become better people. And the good thing is that most of the time we have that ally or allies, more than one, who are actually a part of our community, the ones that teach us skills that we're able to essentially glean from the experiences that we have. Uno, como dice mi papá, uno nunca nace sabiendo, ¿verdad? Y porque no nacemos sabiendo, tenemos que fracasar, tenemos que tener pruebas de nuestras habilidades. Y así vamos conociendo nuevas personas, formando alianzas, y al último así es como se adquiere nuevos talentos, nuevas habilidades que llega a ser crucial, muy importante para lo que viene al último, como no al fin precisamente, pero al momento en que es necesario tener esas habilidades. Ese es un momento que cada persona tiene en su vida, que llega siendo la muerte y el renacimiento, porque en los cuentos, específicamente cuando se hablan de los cuentos de las hadas, es casi siempre el caso que el héroe llega a fracasar mayormente, y al fracasar es el momento preciso en que ellos aprenden cómo usar sus nuevos talentos. The hero's journey itself is essentially the story about how we become a new person. Or maybe not so much a new person, but a person that has actually now come to overcome their fears and their insecurities. And it's part of that death and rebirth process, that kind of like the counterpoint or that midway point of every story that shows us that we are in fact learning from our mistakes, that we are acquiring new skills, and that we are essentially becoming a different kind of person than what we used to be before. Those revelations that we have that follow the death and rebirth process, that's when you start to realize that these are skills and things that you can utilize over and over again throughout the rest of your life. That's where you accept change, right? And that's where you also, at least in some cases, a hero of a journey might seek atonement. El desagravio es el momento en que, por lo menos en la mayoría de cuentos, es el momento en que el héroe de un cuento llega a reconocer sus propios errores, se llegan a entender que ellos también son culpables de lo que ha pasado muchas veces. Y muchas veces lo que pasa después del desagravio es algún tipo de regalo, ¿verdad? Ya sea el perdón, o sea, en el caso de un cuento de hadas, el momento en que se les revela, hay que decir, una espada mágica, right? That gift that a character receives after their atonement period is normally something that was always within them. It's really more of a realization that they were always capable of being a better person, a better individual. And so at that point, that's where the character arc is complete. Ya el cuento termina, llegamos al fin, y el ciclo de la aventura del héroe empieza de nuevo. Porque, pues, como ya sabemos, nadie es perfecto. Siempre hay maneras en que podemos mejorar y no vivir tanto en el status quo. So that's a very brief overview. There's obviously more nuance to the hero's journey itself, but, it's a cycle. It's a thing that you will see over and over and over again done in all storytelling, basically from the beginning of time. And I think that the fact that we have that sort of consistency in storytelling, it says a lot about just how we as people kind of come to be, I want to say. It's how we as people can learn from one another, build community with each other. There's so many different even roles that we play for other people's stories. Y cuando uno da esa realización, llega a esa realización de que cada uno de nosotros venimos siendo algún papel, tomamos un papel en la misma aventura de otro ser, de otra persona, de otro héroe, ¿verdad? Porque, como dije, cada quien es su propio héroe. And there's something kind of powerful to knowing that we all fit a role in someone else's life, whether that be the hero of our own journey, or whether that be maybe even the villain in someone else's, or a mentor, or even the herald, the person that instigates that particular person's journey to something greater than where they were to begin with. So it's good to know that there are archetypes. right? Because the archetype is a recurring pattern of human behavior. El arquetipo es un modelo recurrente que se ve no solo en los cuentos, sino también en la manera en que nos comportamos como humanos. Cada símbolo, cada personaje que es típico de un cuento llega a ser un símbolo, una metáfora de cómo somos nosotros en cada diferente momento de nuestra vida. So as you look at the handout this week for the archetypes that are found in the hero's journey, you'll see that, maybe at one point you were someone's hero, or you are, again, the hero of your own journey, but maybe you were maybe one of the shadows, right? Where the shadow is a villain or an enemy to something or someone's journey. We don't like to necessarily admit to those things, but the truth is that no one is perfect. That's why we go on our human journey. That's why even some of the best villains in history, in storytelling, we connect with them because we see that they are human. They are, in fact, motivated by the same things that the hero is motivated by. And so I encourage you to study the different archetypes and really think about, who have you been in your own life, in other people's lives? Who are the people that have been your mentors or your heralds? There's different instances where we behave in those ways. Esta semana, cuando estuve planeando la lección, estuve pensando mucho en pues, no solo qué es lo que les iba a presentar esta semana, sino también ya cuando llegué a la aventura del héroe, me puse a pensar mucho en qué es lo que por mí ha tenido, no sé, como importancia, ¿verdad? ¿Qué es lo que para mí ha sido quizá una sombra? Because we all kind of have them. We all have these shadows that sometimes aren't necessarily a person, but it can be even yourself. If you look at the particular definition of the shadow, it can be the villain and the enemy, perhaps the enemy within, the dark side of the force, the repressed possibilities of the hero, his or her potential for evil. Can be other kinds of repression as well, right? It can be something like a repressed grief, anger, frustration, or a creativity that is dangerous if it doesn't have an outlet. It's kind of an interesting thing to think about, right? It can be a creativity that is dangerous if not released. Hopefully that's not necessarily your case. But I think that there's something that I've sort of come to understand in myself, and that's, that while we do have in our lives all of these different things, the heroes, the shadows, the mentors, the herald, even the guardian of the threshold, or the shapeshifter, the tricksters and the allies, we all have, I think, within us too, that fear of our own potential. And that potential is something that can sometimes inhibit us, or that fear of the potential can inhibit us from fully realizing our best. If you continue on in the handout, by the way, you'll see that, the hero's journey is a little bit more male-oriented. There's also the concept of the heroine's journey, which is adapted from Maureen Murdoch, which has some interesting alternatives, I want to call them, some interesting additions that relate to the idea of masculinity and femininity. So the heroine's journey is almost always different, in that there is a way in which the female hero, the heroine, is going to be kind of playing into patriarchal roles. And then towards the very end, there comes that point where the roles are sort of merged, right? The female and the masculine, the feminine and masculine, they're integrated in a way that makes the person more whole. So you end up seeing the female heroine, the female hero, the heroine, as an actual fully fledged human being instead of being just this sort of one-sided, maybe shallow character, which is normally why I think it's more empowering to watch a heroine's journey as opposed to the hero's journey. It's something that's so common and kind of played out that ultimately we don't really need to see more heroes. We need to see more heroines. But definitely take a look at that. I'm not going to really get into that particular comparison too much this week just because of time. I want to make sure that you all have time to actually complete the video and then also obviously get to work, because I haven't seen too many of you guys actually turn in a whole lot of work, and I want to make sure that we do have enough writing to complete a zine this time around. But going back to what I was saying previously about my own sort of searching, I want to say, of what my hero's journey has entailed. And one of the things that I wrote about this week in the poem that I'm sharing with you is, I think, the thing that sort of scares me, right? One of my shadows. And it comes down to being insecure. I think everyone has insecurities, but there are insecurities that I have that are related to my creativity and whether or not I'm able to express it all the time. And sometimes those things, they might spill over into other parts of my relationships with people, whether I know it or not. And those are the things that I'm hoping to at least address by continuing to write, continuing to be creative. So aquí les presento mi poema de la semana. Se llama Latente Ambición. Destruye la ruptura de poesía retoñando en el estómago, sarcófago de tensiones y lamentos por el haber tragado demasiado humo y licor, derivado de la esperanza, vigilancia de vestigios de vidas pasadas y los ecos de su piel, que retomó forma después de ser pellizcada. Destruye la ruptura cuando el caudal estomacal provoca úlcera poética. Destruye la ruptura de palabras de piel en papel. La ansiedad de poesía tardiza, ansiedad de perder chispa y musa, y aquella sombra que maulla en el ombligo del corazón sofocado por placa y colesterol. Los subproductos de alegría y las quesadillas rellenas de billetes americanas. Se sospecha esa vida buena y la grandeza como caparazón hueca, resonando con huesos de la identidad de un poeta menor. Destruye la ruptura cuando no hay ni tinta ni papel, ni voz ni intención, y solo queda la impresión de vocales y consonantes que chupaban en un tiempo a mi labio inferior, labio, que una vez pronunció soy poeta, sin saber si allí fuera a quedarse aquella latente ambición. And in English, I translated the poem for you guys. Called it Latent Ambition. The rupture of poetry blossoming destroys the stomach, sarcophagus of tensions and laments for having swallowed too much smoke and liquor derived from hope, a vigilance over vestiges of past lives and the echoes of her skin that retook form after being pinched. The rupture destroys when that gastric flow provokes poetic ulcers. The rupture of skin words on paper destroys an anxiety of tardy poetry, anxiety of a lost spark and muse, and that shadow that muse in the belly button of the heart suffocating from plaque and cholesterol, the byproducts of happiness and quesadillas filled with American bills. I suspect the good life and greatness are a hollow shell resonating with the bones of the identity of a minor poet. The rupture destroys when there is no ink, no paper, no voice, no intention, and all that remains is the impression of vowels and consonants that suckled at one time on my lower lip, a lip that one time mouthed, I am a poet, without knowing if that was where that latent ambition would stay. There you go, friends. Ahí tienen otro poema. Ahí tienen otra lección. I mean, I've been thinking a lot about just the things that are happening in my personal life, and the things that are happening for all of us as a community, and I do hope that these lessons have been useful as we sort of embark on this new journey as a community of creatives and a community of people hoping that we don't get sick, hoping that the heroes of our current story are able to help overcome not just our own fears of what could happen, but I hope that this is giving you a chance to really think about who you are, because ultimately I think that that's part of what the human journey is. The human journey is the act of finding your individual place in this larger world. And more than ever, I think we now see that our world is interconnected. We are all in this together, and together we can get over it, which also means that our own individual responsibilities are to ourselves first and foremost, ultimately. My writing prompt or homework assignment for this week is to think about, again, what part of the human journey have you been on? And whose human journey have you contributed to? Whose heroic path have you been a mentor on? Who have you been a threshold guardian for? Who have you been a shadow for? What are your shadows? If you choose to write a poem this week that is inspired by this lesson, I encourage you to think about what archetype have you been and in what situations, or what has an archetype been in your particular path, and write about that. Mine was very much about me thinking about my shadows. What are the things that have kept me from perhaps growing, and or have been my fears. And truthfully speaking, one of them is that I fear not being creative. I fear not being a good poet. I fear that maybe the behaviors that I sometimes fall into are behaviors that keep me from growing and that keep me from becoming a better person. And I know that if we all put our minds to it, we can overcome those things, because I know I'm working on that. I'm working to overcome whatever patterns of behavior I might have that have been perhaps toxic. And I'm trying my best. That's all anybody can do. So thank you all for joining me. Thank you all for being a part of the Conchas y Café community and part of Distill Arts. I'll have more announcements to give through social media, so please make sure that you're following on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook using @DSTL Arts. And I'll be providing instructions in the Google Classroom on how to submit your work for the upcoming Conchas y Café Zine soon. Salud, amigos. Aquí les va un traguito de café y espero verlos muy pronto.